The wrestling world just witnessed something absolutely unthinkable that has left every single fan picking their jaw up off the floor and scrambling to make sense of what just went down on Monday Night Raw. We're talking about a moment so shocking that it's going to be replayed and analyzed for years to come, a moment that changed everything we thought we knew about loyalty, brotherhood, and the complex web of relationships that define the current landscape of professional wrestling. What happened backstage after the cameras stopped rolling might be even more stunning than what we saw during the broadcast, and if you stick around, I'm going to take you through every single detail of this earth-shattering night that nobody saw coming. Before we dive into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss any of the explosive developments that are about to unfold in the coming weeks. The night started like any other episode of Raw, with the crowd buzzing with anticipation and the arena electric with energy. Seth Rollins was scheduled to compete in a high-stakes match that everyone knew would be physical, brutal, and potentially career-defining. The Visionary had been on an absolute tear lately, proving once again why he's considered one of the most talented performers in the entire industry. His matches have been nothing short of spectacular, and his promos have been cutting through the noise like a hot knife through butter. Fans have watched him evolve from the architect of the Shield to a single superstar who can carry any storyline on his shoulders. His relationship with his former Shield brothers has always been complicated, layered with years of betrayals, reconciliations, and an underlying bond that seemed unbreakable despite all the chaos they've put each other through over the years. The match itself was going exactly as expected, with Rollins delivering his signature high-flying offense and technical prowess that has made him a fan favorite. The crowd was fully invested in every near fall, every counter, and every moment of drama that unfolded in the ring. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Vision, who had been aligned with Rollins in recent weeks, was positioned at ringside ostensibly to watch his back and prevent any interference from rival factions. The partnership between these two had seemed solid, built on mutual respect and a shared goal of dominance. They had cut promos together that were convincing, their chemistry seemed genuine, and fans had started to buy into this alliance as something that could reshape the entire roster's power structure. But professional wrestling has taught us time and time again that trust is a luxury that rarely survives in this cutthroat environment. As Rollins was setting up for his finishing sequence, seemingly moments away from securing a massive victory that would propel him toward championship contention, Vision made his move. The betrayal wasn't subtle or accidental. It was deliberate, vicious, and calculated in a way that made it clear this had been planned for quite some time. Vision pulled Rollins out of the ring with a force that caught everyone off guard, and what followed was an absolute beatdown that left the crowd in stunned silence. This wasn't just a simple turn, this was a statement of intent. Vision unleashed a fury that seemed personal, targeting Rollins with strikes and maneuvers that were designed to inflict maximum damage. The attack continued even after officials rushed to the scene trying to pull Vision away from his former partner. Security personnel flooded ringside, but Vision was possessed, driven by something deeper than a simple desire to win matches or climb the ladder. He grabbed a steel chair and the sickening sound of metal connecting with flesh echoed through the arena. Rollins tried to fight back initially, but the surprise element had given Vision too much of an advantage. The beating was so severe that medical personnel had to rush out with a stretcher, something that's always a serious sign in professional wrestling where performers are trained to take punishment and keep going. The crowd's reaction shifted from shock to genuine concern as they watched Rollins being loaded onto the stretcher, clearly in significant distress. Backstage, the atmosphere immediately became tense as word spread about the severity of Rollins' condition. Wrestlers, producers, and crew members gathered around monitors trying to get updates on his status. The immediate decision was made to transport Rollins to a local medical facility for evaluation and treatment. This isn't something that happens often, and when it does, it signals that the situation is far more serious than a typical wrestling injury angle. The footage of Rollins being loaded into an ambulance was grim, with medical staff working urgently and the usually cocky and confident superstar looking legitimately shaken by what had just transpired. Here's where the story takes an absolutely fascinating turn that nobody could have predicted. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief himself, the man who has dominated the wrestling landscape for years with an iron fist and an unwavering commitment to his own agenda, made a decision that sent shockwaves through the entire locker room. Sources backstage reported that Reigns immediately left the arena after learning about Rollins' condition and headed straight to the hospital. This is the same Roman Reigns who has shown ruthless aggression toward anyone who stands in his way, the same man who has torn through the roster leaving destruction in his wake, and the same individual who has had his own complicated history with Seth Rollins that includes betrayals, brutal matches, and years of tension. The relationship between Reigns and Rollins goes back to their Shield days when they dominated the roster as a unified force that seemed unstoppable. They were brothers in arms, protecting each other and conquering everyone who dared to challenge them. But like all great factions, the Shield eventually imploded with Rollins delivering the initial betrayal that shattered the group and set all three members on divergent paths. That betrayal led to years of animosity, with Rollins and Reigns crossing paths multiple times in high-profile feuds that produced some of the most intense matches in recent memory. There were moments when it seemed like they might reconcile, brief periods where the old brotherhood flickered back to life, but circumstances always pulled them apart again. So when news broke that Roman Reigns was at the hospital, personally checking on Seth Rollins after Vision's attack, the wrestling world collectively lost its mind. Social media exploded with theories, speculation, and reactions from fans who couldn't believe what they were hearing. Some thought it might be an elaborate storyline designed to create buzz and intrigue. Others believed it was a genuine moment of humanity breaking through the character, a reminder that beneath the personas and storylines, these performers share a bond forged through years of traveling together, bleeding together, and sacrificing their bodies for the entertainment of millions. Details about what happened at the hospital started trickling out through various sources and insiders who had connections to the situation. Reigns reportedly arrived with a small entourage and immediately asked medical staff about Rollins' condition. He wasn't there for cameras, there was no production crew filming for some future angle, and he specifically requested privacy for the visit. This wasn't about advancing a storyline or creating content for television. This was personal. Witnesses described Reigns as genuinely concerned, a far cry from the cold and calculating tribal chief character he portrays on screen. He waited for updates on Rollins' medical evaluation and insisted on seeing him once doctors cleared it. The conversation between Reigns and Rollins in that hospital room is something that most fans will never know the full details of, but sources close to both men have provided some insight into what transpired. There was no animosity, no posturing, and no adherence to the characters they play on television. It was two men who have known each other for over a decade, who have shared countless moments both triumphant and tragic, having a genuine conversation about what had just happened. Reigns reportedly expressed his anger about Vision's attack, calling it cowardly and dishonorable. He also reminded Rollins that despite everything they've been through, despite all the betrayals and battles, there's a line that shouldn't be crossed. This hospital visit raises so many questions about where the storyline goes from here and what it means for the relationships between all these major players. Is Roman Reigns about to insert himself into the situation with Vision? Will we see the tribal chief unleash his fury on someone who attacked a former brother? Or is this hospital visit going to be kept completely separate from the on-screen narrative, a real-life moment of respect and concern that exists outside the boundaries of sports entertainment? The possibilities are endless and the speculation is already reaching fever pitch among the fanbase. The timing of all this is particularly interesting given where Roman Reigns currently stands in his own storyline arc. The tribal chief has been navigating increasingly complex family dynamics with his bloodline faction experiencing internal strife and challenges to his authority. He's been dealing with threats from multiple directions, trying to maintain his position at the top of the mountain while younger, hungrier competitors circle like sharks sensing blood in the water. Adding the Seth Rollins situation into the mix creates yet another layer of complexity that could explode in any number of directions. For Seth Rollins, this attack by Vision represents a massive setback at a time when he was building serious momentum toward championship opportunities. The physical injuries he sustained are serious enough that he'll likely be sidelined for at least some period of time, giving Vision space to gloat about his actions and establish himself as a genuine threat to the entire roster. But the mental and emotional impact might be even more significant. Being betrayed by someone you trusted, someone you brought into your circle and vouched for, cuts deeper than any physical wound. Rollins will have to deal with questions about his judgment, his ability to trust, and whether he's still the same dominant force he was before this incident. Vision's motivations for the attack are still somewhat murky, though he's likely to provide his explanation in the coming weeks through promos that detail his grievances and justifications. Perhaps he felt overshadowed by Rollins' star power and decided the only way to establish himself was to take out the man he had been aligned with. Maybe there were simmering resentments about how he was being utilized or promises that weren't kept. Or possibly this was orchestrated by someone else pulling strings behind the scenes, using Vision as a weapon to remove Rollins from the equation for reasons that will become clear as the story unfolds. The broader implications for the entire Raw roster are significant because this attack and Reigns' response have shifted power dynamics and created new alliances or rivalries that nobody anticipated. Other wrestlers are going to have to decide where they stand on what happened. Do they support Vision's right to do whatever it takes to climb the ladder, or do they view his attack as crossing a line that demands retribution? Will anyone step up to fill the void left by Rollins' absence, or will multiple competitors scramble to take advantage of the opening he's left in the championship picture? And how will management respond to such a brutal attack that resulted in one of their top stars being hospitalized? The Shield's legacy continues to cast a long shadow over everything happening in professional wrestling even years after the faction officially disbanded. The three men who comprised that legendary group have gone on to become the biggest stars of their generation, each carving out their own path and creating their own legacy. But they remain inextricably linked by those early years when they dominated together, and moments like this hospital visit remind everyone that beneath the competition and conflict, there's still something there that connects them. It's not the unbreakable bond they once shared, it's been fractured and tested too many times for that, but it's something real nonetheless. Roman Reigns visiting Seth Rollins at the hospital after Vision's attack is one of those moments that blurs the line between character and reality in professional wrestling. It's the kind of thing that makes this form of entertainment so compelling and unique. These aren't just actors reading scripts and going home to their separate lives. These are performers who genuinely live this business, who have real relationships and real history with each other that informs everything they do in the ring. When Roman Reigns showed up at that hospital, he wasn't being the tribal chief. He was being Joe Anoa'i checking on Colby Lopez, two men who have traveled the world together and know what it means to sacrifice everything for this industry. As fans process everything that happened, the questions keep multiplying. Will Seth Rollins be out of action for weeks or months? How will Vision capitalize on his attack to build himself up as a major player? Is Roman Reigns going to get involved in some capacity, either to defend his former brother or for his own strategic reasons? What happens when Rollins eventually returns seeking revenge? The storytelling possibilities are nearly limitless, and that's what makes this such an exciting time to be following professional wrestling. The wrestling business has always thrived on moments that feel authentic, that tap into genuine emotion and make fans forget they're watching a predetermined show. Vision's attack on Seth Rollins achieved that. It felt vicious and real in a way that transcended typical wrestling angles. Roman Reigns' decision to visit the hospital added another layer of authenticity that has people talking not just about what happens next in the storyline, but about the real relationships and dynamics between these performers. It's a reminder that the best wrestling always has some element of truth to it, some kernel of genuine feeling that performers can build upon to create something special. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because the fallout from this situation is going to unfold over the coming weeks and months, creating must-see television that you won't want to miss. The pieces are in motion now for something potentially historic, and being there to watch it all develop is going to be an incredible ride for everyone involved.